After watering your lavender alongside your roses on the same schedule, you notice 3 months later that the roses are flourishing while the lavender is suffering. Its base is yellow and its stems are sideways. Despite lavender's reputation for hardiness, it requires a specific set of conditions to thrive. The standard watering, feeding, and mulching routine that benefits the rest of the garden actually works against lavender. In order to remedy this issue, there are 5 key setup adjustments that can be made. Subscribe and like the video, because all 5 are coming up now. Lavender exhibits a level of tolerance to neglect, but this tolerance is not limitless. It thrives best when grown in conditions similar to the dry, poor hillsides where it naturally evolved, rather than in a meticulously tended garden bed. Many unsuccessful attempts at growing lavender result from an excessive amount of normal garden care, rather than a lack of it. Overwatering, using rich soil, and applying organic mulch may seem like acts of kindness, but they actually hinder the growth of a plant that is accustomed to surviving in sparse conditions. Out of the 5 surprising facts presented, 2 may catch you off guard. One involves the specific needs of an established lavender plant, as it actually requires much less of a certain item compared to other plants in your garden. In fact, providing too much of this item can lead to the roots becoming waterlogged and suffocated. The other fact concerns a common misconception regarding another item that people typically choose to place around the base of plants. Contrary to popular belief, this choice is often incorrect and can have negative consequences. However, the solution to this problem may seem counterintuitive at first glance. Let's get started. Secret 1. Lean, poor soil. When planting lavender, it's common practice to dig a hole, mix in compost, and consider the job well done. However, this approach can have negative consequences for lavender plants. Lavender is native to rocky, sun-drenched Mediterranean hillsides with nutrient-poor, sandy soil. Unlike other plants, lavender thrives in this challenging environment because the dry, shallow soil encourages compact growth. Adding compost to the soil has 2 counterproductive effects on lavender. First, it introduces nutrients that lavender plants are not adapted to handle, resulting in soft, leafy growth that is vulnerable to wind and cold. Second, compost retains water, which can lead to root rot as the moisture sits against the roots for extended periods of time. To ensure the health and vitality of your lavender plants, it's important to mimic their natural habitat by planting them in well-draining, sandy soil without the addition of compost. This will help them develop the tight, woody structure needed to withstand harsh weather conditions and thrive in your garden. Before adding anything to the planting hole, test the soil by grabbing a handful and trying to form a ball. If it holds its shape, it is too rich for lavender. To correct this, mix in coarse sand or horticultural grit until the soil crumbles apart. Alternatively, plant on a raised mound to allow for proper drainage. If dealing with heavy clay soil, simply amending the planting hole will not be sufficient. Clay soil will hold water around the hole, preventing proper drainage. In this case, widen the amended area to a few feet across or opt for planting on a raised mound to avoid water pooling at the base. When it comes to planting containers, using a standard bagged potting mix may seem like the obvious choice, but it can actually be detrimental. These mixes are designed to retain moisture and nutrients, which may not be ideal for plants like lavender. Lavender thrives in soil that is neutral to slightly alkaline, with a pH of 6.5 to 7.5. If a soil test reveals a more acidic pH, adding garden lime can help bring it closer to the optimal range. However, proper drainage is key and should be prioritized over soil pH. It's important to recognize that sometimes the plant that appears to need the most care is actually the one that requires less, so ensuring that the soil and drainage are appropriate before planting is crucial. Secret 2. Blazing full sun day. Many gardeners often overlook the importance of sunlight requirements, assuming that partial sun or a few hours here and there will suffice. While this may work for shade-tolerant plants, lavender is different. Its gray-green leaves are not just for show. They are a crucial adaptation to the intense sunlight of its native Mediterranean environment where shade is scarce. Lavender thrives in direct, unfiltered sunlight for at least 6 to 8 hours a day, if not more. Anything less, and the plant begins to struggle. Stems become elongated and weak as they reach for light, Flower buds may fail to form properly, and the essential oils responsible for lavender's signature scent and disease resistance diminish. To ensure your lavender plants stay healthy, upright, and productive, providing them with ample sunlight is not just a preference, it's a necessity. Another important factor to consider beyond just light is the effect of full sun on the soil and foliage of lavender plants. Exposure to full sun can quickly dry out the soil surface and the plant's foliage following rain or watering. This is particularly crucial for lavender, which is sensitive to excess moisture. Choosing a shadier location for your lavender plant not only results in a lighter and ledgier appearance, but also increases the risk of the roots and base of the plant staying damp for longer periods, compounding the risks associated with excess moisture. Moreover, the amount of sunlight also affects the fragrance of lavender. The essential oils responsible for the plant's scent are produced in tiny structures on the leaf surface, and this production is heightened by heat and direct light exposure. While a lavender plant may technically survive with just 4 hours of dappled shade, the flowers are likely to have a weaker scent and appear paler compared to those grown in a sunnier, exposed location. In hotter climates, some gardeners may opt to provide afternoon shade as a precaution, but this should not compromise the minimum light requirement of 6 hours per day. In extreme heat conditions, a brief period of shade during the hottest part of the afternoon may be warranted, but this should be viewed as an exception rather than the norm for growing lavender successfully. It is important to prioritize meeting the plant's need for at least 6 hours of sunlight daily when planning its placement in the garden. Before you plant, observe the selected spot for a full day. Examine it at different times, morning, midday, and late afternoon, and calculate the number of hours of direct sunlight it receives without any obstruction between the plant and the sky. If the spot receives less than 6 hours of direct sunlight, it is best to relocate the plant rather than compromising, as lavender requires ample sunlight. The same rule applies when growing lavender in a pot instead of the ground. It is recommended to rotate the container every 1 to 2 weeks to prevent uneven growth caused by one side receiving more light than the others. Secret 3. The bone-dry water rule. It is important to water lavender differently than most other plants because its natural environment is not conducive to frequent watering. Lavender originated in rocky hillsides, where the soil quickly drains after rain, leaving the ground dry soon after. This means that lavender does not do well with a strict watering schedule like other garden plants. When lavender is watered on a schedule, the roots can become waterlogged since they are not adapted to prolonged moisture. This can lead to the plant slowly dying without any obvious signs until the stems begin to yellow or wilt. To prevent this, it is best to mimic the plant's natural habitat by allowing the soil to dry out between waterings and ensuring that the lavender is not constantly sitting in damp soil. By adapting your watering routine to suit the needs of lavender, you can help ensure the plant's health and longevity. Instead of simply reducing the frequency of watering, it is best to completely abandon a fixed watering schedule. Prior to watering your lavender plant, check the moisture level of the soil by inserting your finger 2 or 3 inches below the surface. If it still feels damp, refrain from watering, even if it has been several days since the last watering. Once lavender has established itself, typically after its first full growing season with well-established roots, it can often survive solely on rainfall during the summer in most temperate climates. Additional watering may only be necessary during prolonged periods of dry weather. Exceptions to this are first-year plants, whose roots have not spread out enough to access moisture on their own. Providing regular watering during this initial growth period is acceptable and will not harm the plant's long-term health. Beyond the first year, it is advisable to minimize watering with a hose to promote the plant's resilience. It is common for overwatered plants to exhibit symptoms of thirst, such as yellowing leaves, soft and dark stems near the base, and a generally wilted appearance. However, a key indicator of overwatering is when a plant does not perk up after being watered, as this may indicate root damage that prevents water uptake. When it comes to potted plants, such as lavender, it is important to check soil moisture regularly, as they tend to dry out quickly. Furthermore, pots should have drainage holes to prevent waterlogging, and excess water should not be left standing in a saucer. By being mindful of watering practices and ensuring proper drainage, you can help your plants thrive. Secret 4. Gravel over mulch. Bark mulch provides valuable benefits to most plants in the yard, such as moisture retention and root insulation. However, around lavender plants, it can have unintended consequences. When bark mulch is packed up against the woody base of lavender stems, where they meet the ground, the moisture retention that is beneficial elsewhere can actually lead to rot at the crown of the plant. Gardeners refer to this woody base as the crown, which ideally should remain dry and cool. Unlike in other areas of the garden where wood chips and bark serve their purpose effectively, around lavender plants, they can create a problem by holding water against the crown for extended periods after rain. This highlights the importance of understanding how different plants may have unique needs when it comes to mulching. Replace mulch with a 1 to 2 inch layer of pea gravel or crushed stone, positioned 2 to 3 inches away from the plant's base to avoid direct contact with the crown. Gravel provides the same benefits as mulch, such as weed suppression and temperature regulation, while preventing excess moisture retention. Additionally, gravel reflects daytime heat onto the lower leaves, aiding in faster drying after rain. Another concern related to bark comes from the connection to the earlier point about moisture levels. When wood chips break down, they add organic matter to the soil, which goes against the goal of creating a nutrient-poor environment in a lean soil system. Adding fresh mulch to your garden provides a consistent supply of the nutrients you may have missed when initially planting. Additionally, the moisture-retaining qualities of damp bark can attract pests like slugs, which can damage your plants. While gravel may seem like a more expensive option initially compared to bark, it lasts longer and does not need to be replaced as frequently. Ultimately, the cost of gravel can balance out over time, making it a more cost-effective choice for your garden. If you're converting an established plant from bark to gravel mulch, anticipate some initial stress as it acclimates to the new, drier surface. It is advisable to avoid making this transition during periods of extreme heat. The protective nature of using bark mulch to shield the plant's base is finally beneficial when the material underneath stops retaining moisture, which lavender does not tolerate well. Secret 5. Prune into the green, never the wood. In the care of lavender plants, the conflicting approaches of cautious and confident gardeners often result in damage. Some gardeners, out of concern over potentially weakening the tough and drought-resistant plant, avoid pruning it altogether. Meanwhile, others approach lavender as they would a hedge or rose bush, cutting it back aggressively in the fall to maintain a tidy appearance. Unfortunately, both methods lead to the same outcome: a lavender plant with sparse growth at the base and thin greenery only along the outer edge of a hollow, woody center. Lavender plants have a specific point on their stems where they will not produce new shoots if pruned beyond. This point is where the green growth stops and the bare gray wood begins. It is important to avoid cutting into this bare wood, as the plant will not resprout from there. However, the plant still requires regular pruning. In early spring, once new green growth is visible on the stems, it is recommended to trim roughly 1/3 of the length of each stem. Stop the cut a couple of inches above the point where the leafy growth ends and the bare wood starts. This will help promote healthy growth while maintaining the overall structure of the plant. To ensure your plant remains full and healthy throughout the season, it is beneficial to do a lighter pruning round after the initial bloom in midsummer. This step involves removing spent flower stalks and a small portion of the stem while avoiding cutting into the woody base. In cases where a plant has not been properly pruned in several years and appears sparse in the middle, a more drastic rejuvenation cut may be necessary. This involves trimming the plant down to 4 to 6 inches from the ground, but only if there is visible green growth near the base of the stems. However, this method can be risky, as a plant in such poor condition may not have enough healthy tissue to recover. Regularly pruning your plant each year is essential to prevent the development of a hollow, woody center that can cause the shrub to split open. By skipping this annual maintenance, you are ultimately setting your plant up for potential damage. Both excessive and timid pruning practices can lead to the undesired outcome of a shrub with a weakened structure. In caring for lavender plants, these are 5 crucial considerations that are essential for success, and all are focused on a central theme. To summarize the key points outlined in this video, avoid using compost and instead maintain lean and poor soil. Ensure the plant receives 6 to 8 hours of direct sunlight without any obstruction. Water deeply and only when the soil actually indicates a need for more moisture. Opt for gravel mulch instead of bark, and keep it away from the base of the plant. Trim back the plant in the spring, focusing on green growth and avoiding cutting into bare wood. These recommendations are not about providing more care, but rather about simplifying and adjusting care practices where necessary. Share in the comments which tip was most surprising to you, or if your lavender has faced challenges despite following traditional care guidelines. If you found this information helpful, please like the video and consider subscribing for additional insights.